welcome back for this month's fly of the month, and this time we're tying what we call the Rattlin Rabbit. As you can see, it's got some rabbit, it's got some maribou, there's a rattle hidden inside there. This is just a big bass fly, and so we've been testing this one last couple months. Had some pretty good success. In fact, this past weekend we caught a 4-pounder on her. So pretty cool fly, kind of checks all the marks. It's got rabbit, which swims and kind of imitates a worm. For you conventional guys, it's got the rubber legs on there, so it has a lot of movement. And then we've got a rattle tucked inside there, so even when it's stained, dirty water, you've got some noise maker in there. We tied on an Ahrex jig hook. Try to keep it weedless so you can fish it around structure, whether that's timber, laydowns, rocky points, stuff like that. And then it's got some pretty heavy eyes, so it sinks. I like to fish this one on a sink tip. Throw it up against the bank, give it one hard strip, and just let it fall. So if you've ever fished a wacky rig, Cincos, Texas rig on conventional, this is kind of the idea. We're trying to imitate that falling action, which seems to really trigger the bass to bite. So join us as we come to you live from the Tailwaters HQ on Levy Street.
All right, so I'll tie it in on one side, just like so. Bend it over. What we're going to do is tie it in on the other side. Almost looks like a horseshoe. Alright, stuff's a little tough to work with, so we kind of got to finesse it a little bit. There we go. Alright, get tied in there, and then what I'll do is put a couple wraps underneath it. Alright, there we go. Got our mono loop tied in. Next thing we do is we take and tie in some maribou. Just gonna take one little plume of maribou. Then what I like to do is kind of find where the tips are. Come down and just cut the middle of that stem out, just like that. Alright, kind of like when you're tying a woolly bugger. So this makes nice fluffy piece of maribou, and we're going to make this roughly same length as the hook shank. What we do is we're going to tie this in. This kind of creates a little bit of an underwing. Alright, got that tied in. Next, what we're going to do, we're going to use a hairline plastic fly rattle, size small. So what we got to do is we got to prep it. So there's a little kind of tree on the end. Take our pliers, cut that off of there. What we're going to do is we're going to tie this in. And one of the cool things about that mono loop, when we tied it in, gave us a nice, really flat base, so we don't have to worry about this thing moving on us. Alright, got that tied in. If you want to, you can go in there, put a little bit of head cement, whatever, kind of lock it in. I find that it works pretty good as is. So next we'll do is we're going to use a little bit of the Blaine chocolate filler that you get from Hairline as well. And today we're going to use the olive. Tie this stuff in right on top of our rattle. What we'll do is we're going to take and go and just wrap this all the way around. And you want to make this stuff fairly tight on your wraps. Really trying to kind of fill this thing in, give it a lot of body. Alright. Get that tied in, and then go ahead, make a couple wraps around the hook shank as well. Okay, got that secured, tie it off. Alright, go and trim it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of trim this stuff up. So one thing I want to do is on top of the fly, I'm going to take it, cut it. This way when I tie it in my zonker's got a nice flat spot to lie. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim up the bottom of it. with a little bit of taper. And I'm actually going to do the same thing on the sides as well. Trim them down, just like so. Alright, so just trim it up some. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we're tying our legs. And today we're using two-tone silly legs. So I'm just going to take them, wrap them around my thread, tie them in. What I want to do here is I want to split them. I got 3 on one side and 3 on the other. Go ahead and just kind of lock those guys in. Okay. What I can do now is I can go ahead and trim them up. So I'm just going to kind of pull them tight. Alright, go ahead and cut the ends. So there I've got my legs tied in, 3 on each side. Alright, next thing we do is we're going to tie in our zonker strip. Today we're using a barred zonker strip. You can use a magnum strip if you want to. This is a regular strip. I wouldn't use a squirrel strip. They tend to be a little bit too skinny. But what we're going to do is we're going to measure this out. And we want this tail to be 2 lengths of the hook behind. So it's a pretty long zonker strip. So we're going to go 1, 2. That's my tie-in point. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this, push it over my hook, remove my fly, pull my zonker strip over, put it back in there. Now what I'm going to do, pull the zonker strip all the way down, pull it pretty tight, kind of stroke everything back. If you want to, you can kind of wet it. Alright, now I'm just going to tie this guy in. Couple wraps. Okay, got that tied in. I'm just going to go ahead, give it a little bit of a trim. Alright, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of make a couple wraps. Trap that zonker strip down in there. Kind of brush everything back. And if you find you got a little bit of extra flash there, you can go ahead and just trim that out of there. So we're not going for pretty, we're going for effective on this guy. I'm going to take my thread. What I'm trying to do is just kind of build up a little bit of a nose here. Okay. Now what I want to do a whip finish. Cut that off of there. Alright. Gonna do a little bit more trim work. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some UV epoxy. Today I'm using solar res. I'm going to just kind of coat this thread wraps. What I want to do is I actually want to come down and get this to kind of fill in a little bit between the eyes as well. Lay down one base. I'm going to hit it with my light, cure the first coat, and I'm going to do a second coat on top of it. What I'm trying to do is kind of build up a little bit on the bottom so that when this thing is going over rocks and stuff, less likely to get hung up. Alright, I just kind of like to rotate this thing, kind of get everything nice and even. Then I hit it with my light. Let everything cure. Alright, and there you have it.
the rattle bunny. Go fish.